Hi, it's Glyn here and welcome back to this mini course in optimal breathing for stress management, emotional well-being and optimal performance. So far we've looked at how good breathing creates the foundation for optimal brain functioning, and then we listed 3 components of good breathing: abdominal breathing, letting the air all the way out; gentle breathing, avoiding overbreathing and optimizing brain oxygen supply; and then regular slow breathing. But good breathing is easier said than done. One of the keys to success is to approach the practice with the right mindset. Without this, you can get into a sort of mental quicksand and end up feeling worse, not better. Let me explain what I mean by saying something about the wrong mindset or an unhelpful mindset. Normally, when we learn something new, we bring a sort of problem-solving mindset where we ask ourselves, what's the right way to do this thing? And then, am I doing it right? Or what am I doing wrong? Or even, why isn't this working? That kind of thing. So this is happening at the level of the thinking, reasoning mind. But it's actually the body that knows how to breathe. The body's been breathing 24/7 for all your life, and the vast majority of that time you haven't had to think about it, you don't even have to have been aware of it. Of course, that doesn't mean that the body will just always breathe well. What I'm saying is that this ability to breathe, or at least the ability to learn to breathe, lies at the level of body intelligence, a much more automatic, instinctual part of the mind, or a part of the brain if you like, rather than the thinking mind or the problem-solving mind. Body intelligence is capable of learning new skills spontaneously and without effort. It's different from your willpower. In fact, if you try to breathe from your everyday thinking, problem-solving mind, you're likely to make things worse rather than better. In particular, you're likely to get into overbreathing. It's because your thinking, rational self doesn't really know how to breathe well, and it gets in the way of the part that does. It's like trying really hard to get to sleep and then asking yourself, is it working yet? This is what I mean by mental quicksand. The quicksand trap is trying too hard or trying in the wrong sort of way from the wrong level of the mind. And the quicksand trap is really common in breathing work. I can say this based on lots of experience of measuring my clients' breathing. So the challenge of breathing becomes how to access the resources of the automatic body intelligence, how to let the breath breathe itself, if not by willpower. I think the answer, or at least part of the answer, is that we need the mindset of mindfulness practice. Now, you've probably heard of mindfulness. It's a form of mind training or attention training, becoming increasingly popular these days, in part thanks to a growing body of research proving its benefits. Mindfulness is simply a way of paying attention with openness, interest, and acceptance, but without the judgmental mindset of doing things right or wrong, or well or badly. So in mindful breathing, you appreciate the experience of breathing just as it is, letting go of expectations of what it should be like or how you want it to be, trusting the body to breathe, savouring the pleasurable and comfortable aspects of breathing, but without grasping after them, and at the same time accepting whatever is uncomfortable or unpleasant in your experience without resisting or struggling against it. Obviously, there's more to the teaching of mindfulness than what I've got time for now, and I think it's a good idea to take a mindfulness course if you can. There are lots of these around, including some online ones, and at the end of this presentation I'm going to suggest that you at least try out a guided mindfulness practice for yourself, using one or another online resource. For now, I just want to draw out 2 important points about mindfulness of breathing. The first is that traditionally in mindfulness, you're instructed not to try to change the breathing, but be aware of it just as it is. Yet I'm going to be suggesting breathing in a certain way. In the next part, we're going to be looking at paced breathing. So I've got a disparity to resolve. And my answer is that it's not that the breathing shouldn't change in mindfulness practice. Indeed, it naturally will change as your state of mind changes, becoming calmer and steadier. And in fact, there's evidence that experienced mindfulness meditators naturally find a rhythm of about 6 breaths per minute, which is what we're going to be doing in the next part of the course. It's just a matter of how it changes. The spirit of mindfulness is that you allow it to change from its own level, as it were, rather than willfully manipulating it. I think the instruction not to change the breathing is simply a tactic for avoiding the quicksand trap. So the approach I take is, yes, to breathe in a certain way, but then as you get used to it, to let the body do it for you. When the body gets it right, the breath feels smooth and calm and comfortable. Feelings of pleasure around the breath are your internal feedback, and they're much more important than the thinking mind's judgments about how well or badly you're doing. So the body is sending messages to us in the form of feelings and sensations. And at the same time, in a way it can receive messages. It needs to get a message of trust and reassurance, of safety and confidence. If this level of the mind senses threat, it'll breathe defensively rather than optimally. The second point is that it's actually quite hard to let the breath just be as it is when you're paying close attention. A lot of people find that just by focusing on the breath, they're kind of over-controlling it. It's different to how it naturally is. Even just paying attention can be a subtle version of the quicksand trap. I think the problem is to do with the nature of attention. When the attention is narrow and focal in style, like a sort of mental spotlight, then it tends to be quite grasping in its nature and hard not to over-control. And the solution is to find a way to broaden out the attention, to spread it out as it were, and allow it to become receptive rather than grasping in its nature. And with regard to the breath, this can mean somehow moving the breath more towards the periphery of your awareness, your broad focus, rather than right in front of your eyes. So more like you're watching the breath out of the corner of your eye, as it were. It might mean putting something else at the forefront of your attention, such as the background sounds in the room where you are, or the sense of space around you, something like that. So your homework for today, should you choose to accept it, is to spend a few minutes being mindfully aware of your breathing. To begin with, sit comfortably, relaxed but alert and upright. And then just feel how your breath is, without any idea that you have to change it. Chances are there'll be some aspects of the breath that feel at least relatively good or comfortable. Just savour whatever is there that feels good, appreciating pleasure but not grasping after it, and allowing anything that feels uncomfortable to be there in the background without struggling to get rid of it. Notice if there is anything of the three characteristics of good breathing that we've been talking about. That is belly breathing, gentleness, and slow regularity. You can invite your body to develop these, nothing forced, but you can use your imagination. What would it be like to experience them? What would it be like if the breath started to feel even more comfortable? Imagination is actually a very important part of mindfulness.